Welcome to 4.0 to Pro, the pickleball podcast that focuses on a single shot, tip, or strategy to improve your pickleball game with every single pocket-sized episode. Our goal is to make you better on the court every time you hear our voices.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of 4.0 to Pro, your pocket-sized pickleball podcast where we teach you a single shot or strategy every single episode. I'm Michael O'Neill here in sunny Long Beach, California, joined by the Grandmaster himself, Mircea Murariu, there in Boca Raton, Florida, looking very studious and what looks to be almost a college library of knowledge behind you, sir.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, it's a little den we have here. I like it.
That's all your pickleball strategy guides you've written and had printed and bound.
I wish.
Guys, quick little housekeeping. We are sold out, Mircea, of our camp at the Fort in Fort Lauderdale, which is the last weekend of May, which is super awesome.
Oh, it's amazing. Just couldn't be more grateful for all the support and really excited because it's going to be an awesome, awesome camp. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, we've got some really cool things dialed up. If you were intending on attending the camp, I've opened up 2 more VIP slots. And the reason they're VIP slots is because it's the only space we had because we're maxed out on all the other courts for the rest of the days. So if you are interested, yes, it's going to be a little bit more money. However, we have an incredible setup for the VIPs, not the least of which is an incredible gift bag. But we've got some really cool, fun things for the VIPs, which is the day before the regular camp starts. It's on Thursday. So if you're one of 2 people that would like to join our VIPs, or maybe you're a couple or something like that, then 402p.com/camp is where you can do that. 402p.com/camp. If you are registered for the camp already, you'll be getting an email in the not too distant future with a lot of details like hotels and logistics and things like that. So just stay tuned for that kind of stuff. But Mircea, today we are going to talk about a plague that bothers many, especially 3.5 to 4.5 players, which is bangers. These are players that drive relentlessly. They attack and attack very often balls that they should not be attacking. I will say from personal experience, I literally just went through this a few days ago. I was playing mixed doubles with a guy and then the couple on the other side. The guy just played straight singles. It wasn't even close to mixed doubles. And all he did is ripped it as hard as he could at one or both of us. It was not very enjoyable, to be honest. But you got to have some sort of strategy against those kinds of people. And the ability to recognize what's going to happen is a key component of playing against bangers.
Absolutely. And this came up a few days ago when I had a local clinic. That was one of the primary questions that was asked from a few of the players that had more finesse and didn't have the banger mentality. These types of players are at every level. And with the higher the level they are, the more accurate they tend to be in terms of keeping the ball in and placement. And there's nothing negative. People talk about bangers like it's pejorative, and it can be at times, and sometimes it's not fun to play against these type of players. If they have a style that's working for them or they can't do anything else, it's really not anything that you can criticize because they're trying to maximize their skills. The beauty about pickleball is that you can play it so many different ways. There's so many different styles, so many different grips and techniques. And just because someone doesn't play the classic game with dropping and dinking doesn't mean they're doing anything wrong. They're trying to do something that is effective. And if it's effective, they're going to keep doing it.
Yeah. I think especially when you don't have a plan, which is obviously what this show's about, it can be really intimidating. I did the Humana Cup last year, which is a team event like MLP, and it's before the APP tournaments throughout the year. And our first round, we had Matthias Johansson and I want to say maybe it was Shea Coker. It was another kind of big, tall dude. And all they did is ripped it at us the whole time. My partner and I, it was our literal first game ever together. We'd never been on a court together. And so strategically, I didn't really figure out what we should have done until we had already gotten our butts kicked and it was post-match because I think it was 1-15 or something like that. But we didn't really have the plan. And I think a lot of times the typical instruction in pickleball, which would be to keep them back kind of thing, sometimes those rules need to get bent a little bit from a banger because they want to just sit back and rip it. So we thought after the fact, we probably could have done this and this would have been effective. We've said on the show multiple times, what do our opponents want? What do they want from this particular shot? To me, it feels like they want to sit back really as far as they can be from the kitchen and be able to lace a ball to either space or to body on their opponents.
Exactly. And you just highlighted the approach that we want for really every game/match. What do our opponents want? What's their best shot? And what are they doing to hurt us as opponents? And you want to figure that out pretty quickly. Otherwise, the game is going to go pretty quickly. Players like this, they want the points to be short. That's what they're trying to achieve by banging. So the harder they hit, the more they want to pop up, or they want to force an error or hit you in the chest or torso or wherever. What kinds of things do you think that they don't want, Michael?
What they don't want is they probably don't want to get into long dink rallies or any sort of real pickleball strategy, because some of the people that fall into this category may not have developed those skills yet. So maybe they just came right over from tennis. They have great chops. They can drive like you wouldn't believe, but they're a year away from being able to develop a short game and dinks and things that maybe are a little more strategic in pickleball. That's what they've got. They're using all the arrows they have in their own quiver, but they do not want a long extended point.
Exactly. Let's expand a little bit about things that they want. So they want drives both on their side and actually on our side a lot of times. The tennis players, not only do they want to drive the ball, they want you to drive the ball because they have good hands or good technique, and they want the points to be short. They want to attack and they want to be attacked. They want the balls to be waist high or higher, so they want it in their strike zone. We talked about the short points. They want dead dinks, so they want soft, fluffy balls that they can do whatever they want. And actually, that's really what the goal is for a lot of the panners that we're trying to set up, is set up balls that we can completely control. So they want that as well. They often like to be attacked because they don't want to dink and they want to shorten the points. And expanding on some things that they don't want balls at their feet. They don't want to be off balance. In terms of dinking, they don't want aggressive dinks where they have to move and stretch and the ball's out of their strike zone. Because what we're talking about, we want to structure points that are longer. We want to make them off balance. We are trying to formulate patterns to enhance our strategy of keeping the balls out of their strike zone and to increasing the length of the points in general.
As soon as you recognize, as soon as it's 5-0 bangers, and you talk to your partner and you say, hey, we've got to do something about this, whether it's rec or a tournament, I think the first default mechanism would be, never mind the placement or any of that stuff, let's extend these points as long as we can. Let's see if we can get into a dink rally with them. Because very often they're driving their third, where it's deflecting off of us somewhere, assuming we don't let that ball go out, which is a huge piece of this technique. But it's deflecting off of somewhere, and they're just attacking that fifth, and it's over. It's just a quick point, and it's so fast, and it can be so overwhelming for people that if you don't stop and go, wait a second, this is murdering us. I feel like the first thing you do is say, let's figure out a way to get longer points. And then you start thinking about strategically, where are we going to put that ball on that third shot? And how are we going to be lined up and blah, blah, blah. We're going to get there in a second.
We are going to have to expect that every single ball, no matter how poorly we think that they have a chance to win this point, they're still going to speed it up or drive. So we have to expect drives on fifth and sevenths. And when they get through the midcourt, we're going to expect those. And just expecting those really helps you prepare for them. Because if you're expecting a soft ball and you get one crushed at you, that's not going to be very conducive to you being able to react properly. So we're going to expect the ball to come hard every time.
We talk about this on every single show, Mircea, relentlessly, which is split step and stable base. I don't know that there's a more important moment on the pickleball court than when you are facing a banger, and one that is particularly accurate, especially if they're firing at body versus at space. If you are not completely and utterly stable and prepared for this shot, it's going to deflect off of you like you're a hockey goalie. It's going to go 7 feet in the air, and they're going to crush it. That's going to happen time after time because you're not going to be stable, and your paddle face needs to be so solid, pointed where it's going to go. Otherwise, you're in big trouble.
Yep. You need to be stable, relatively still, torso forward, not leaning backward, and paddle in the ready position. And if you remember one thing from this podcast, that you want to be still and stable when they are hitting the ball. So if you're returning and running up to the kitchen, as you should be, right as they're about to make contact, you stop, you split step, and you're ready. And if you can't split step, just at least be ready and have that stable base, because the extra 2 feet of real estate that you're going to gain is not worth the lack of stability or that motion, the momentum forward. Because what's going to happen is they're going to drive at you. You can't make the decision whether the ball's going in or out very well as you're moving. And then B, if you block or counter, that momentum is going to poke the ball out and you're going to hit the ball deep or hit it inaccurately as you're moving. So if you remember one thing, same thing as you're transitioning through the midcourt. Stop and block the ball. Be ready for it.
Think about how we teach this, Mircho. We teach it as drive towards the person who's moving, drive towards the person who's coming in from returning serve. And we do that because they're probably off balance. If you've got a person who continues to drive at you on that third, but you are stable like a pyramid, you think of yourself as a pyramid and you're making them pay for it, meaning you're hitting a ball where they don't want it, they're going to stop driving at you. They're going to change their tack a little bit and maybe try to hit space or something like that. So you can definitely adjust their game by having your own footwork be really sound.
Exactly. And let's talk about the types of volleys that we're trying to hit. So as we're stable and the ball's being driven at us, you have to remember that when someone is driving the ball at you, you have a lot of momentum coming towards you. So you don't need to take a big swing. You want to use the pace of their ball to block or maybe chip it down at your feet. And maybe you even want to bring them in a little bit, because if you are basically hitting a firm volley, and if you hit it hard and deep, that's really good. But if you just block it back and they have another ball in their wheelhouse in the midcourt, again, they're going to get what they want. Or if you pop it up, for example.
It's the vampire fourth. Exactly. You invite them in, baby. They don't want to dink.
Why don't you explain that a little bit for everyone?
You have to invite a vampire into your house. They can't just come in. In the case of me playing Matthias in the Humana Cup, had we just chipped a block back right at the kitchen line, forced them to run up and take what would have been a very low ball as they're running up and trying to sprint and get it because they're at the baseline driving this third ball, I'm inviting them into the kitchen, which is counter to what we teach. Typically, you want people to stay back and back. Yep. But if they're that good at driving a ball, even one that's a foot off the ground, they've got a new paddle, it's got tons of spin on it, they're coming from tennis, they can arc the thing and rip it anywhere they want. Keeping them back may not be the best move. So I invented the vampire fourth. Please come into the kitchen. You're invited into the kitchen so we can extend this point and maybe try to get some sort of advantage.
Yeah, and you want to keep the ball low,
yes,
or relatively low, maybe a little bit of a slice or a chip. So you're not just giving them fluffy balls in their wheelhouse. This exact scenario played out in a match actually next to me. And the top seed in Sacramento, the APP Senior Men's Pro, was Jaime Onsines and Marcelo Jardim, which is Simone's brother. And they really have great hands. And they were playing these two guys that were driving relentlessly, and it was a little bit windy. And what Jaime and Marcelo were doing were really trying to counter the ball. And a lot of their counters were going out because these guys had great drives and they were taking big swings on the counters, and it was windy. So it was really tough to control the ball. And they lost a tight match in the quarters, and you almost never seen Marcel and Jaime lose in the quarters. And then in the semis, these same guys played Tao Tongban and Patrick Cote. And what they did was really just block the ball or chip the ball down and really make these other guys dink. And I think they won like 11-2, 11-1 or something like that. A completely lopsided match because they figured out what the optimal strategy was.
They didn't want that at all. Those guys did not want those balls. And now all of a sudden every ball's ankle high and it's short and they're off balance and they've got to get it. This next piece might really be the difference. I just mentioned we played against this kind of mixed team the guy was really aggressive. My teammate probably hit, I'm going to say, double digits of balls that were going out. He hit them and he kept them in play. I know we lost at least 5 points on that particular thing, and I couldn't have screamed louder. I'm like, ah! out, because you could see it before they hit the ball. And that's really part of this. They're halfway through the transition zone. They're taking a windmill swing at a ball. It's going out. Put whatever pro you want there. They're not keeping that ball in the court. So if you can just learn to let some of those balls go out, you're going to win more points against bangers.
Yeah, we had a full episode on this. It was episode 99 about letting balls go. One of the most important thing is what kind of paddles people use. So if they're using very hot poppy paddles, if they're using Paddle Techs or Engage paddles or the Gearbox PPE or some of the EULA paddles, you know that the ball is coming off hot. And if they're taking swings, if they have a flat ball, if their grip is not a typical tennis style grip, if they have, for example, if they have more of a continental grip, or if they have maybe an Eastern grip, or if they're just hitting the ball really flat, and if you see that their paddle face is pointing up so it's open, if they have funky grips, if they're taking big backswings, big follow-throughs, if they're moving through the midcourt, those are all clues to let the balls go. And this is the second most important concept that I'd like people to leave with. It. You have to make the decision to let the ball go when the ball is on the other side of the net. So when people say, oh, I can't get out of the way, you couldn't get out of the way because you made the decision as the ball crossed the plane of the net. And by then it's coming you at 50 plus miles an hour and it's too late. And you have to learn how to use these clues, these cues that we've discussed to make the decision to let the balls go when the ball's on the other side of the net. And if you can do that, you're going to have a huge advantage because you're going to win 2 to 3 to 4 to maybe 5 or 6 points per game when you're playing these style of players.
Maybe it's worth noting if you are around some very good players, whether they came from tennis or they're 5-0 plus pickleball players, this is something you do on TV. You can watch what their technique is. And if you end up playing against someone who does not have good swing technique, their swing path is off, et cetera, but they're bangers, you can count on a pretty fair amount of those balls going out. I can identify people that I play against regularly in rec play, and I'll just say, hey, if he winds up from anywhere but 2 feet behind the baseline, that ball's going out. He just doesn't have the topspin technique necessary to keep the ball in the court. So we should just know that going into this. It's nice to recognize it.
Exactly. And I played with a guy locally that is an excellent player, great hands, and he has a racquetball style grip. And I tell whoever my partner is that when he speeds up from below the net, and he does it really well, and he's going to hit it right at you, he's very precise, but it's going out 99.99% of the time when he does it from the kitchen. If it's from low to high, that ball is not staying in the court. And you can only make that decision when it's on the other side of the net.
As you get more familiar with these kinds of things and these kinds of players, you will be able to recognize a lot of these out balls before they get struck. If it's a waist-high ball, they're a good driver, then all bets are off.
Yep.
Yesterday, Mirch, I had a really nice drill session, and I went to some courts I don't normally go to, and I didn't have my exercise bike to warm my legs up with, unfortunately. So I reached into my Yobo Backpack Plus bag, and I broke out the resistance bands, and I don't even know what they're called when you put them around your legs and you go side to side like a side shuffle.
Yep.
Got my hips going. I did lunges that way and got my legs going, did a couple laps around the court, a couple of push-ups, and I felt really good. So by the time my drilling partner showed up, I was warm, man. I felt really good. And the whole point of the Backpack Plus is to allow you to do that. Many of us are over the age of 50. You tweak something on a Tuesday, you wake up on Wednesday morning, you get out of bed like you're a baby calf being born. It's very unstable. And so having these warm-up bands in your bag, as well as the percussion massage gun and the activator ball, which I do as I'm driving to the courts, everything gets a little blood flow in it, and it feels really good. You don't get injured. That's the whole point, is you don't get injured. You're a guy who really takes great care of his body, Mircha. You're in the gym all the time. You really pay a lot of attention to warming up before you get on court.
Oh, absolutely. And this is part of my routine, and especially the massage gun. It's just so portable, so easy. I have it in my car, I have it in my bag all the time. It's just a must for tournaments, and it's just so great on a day-to-day basis. It just improves your recovery. I'm much less sore, and luckily enough, I've been able to avoid the injuries. And I just talked to a friend of mine who has been out for a month, and he's depressed. He's depressed from not playing pickleball.
Yeah.
And I am a horrible injured person. Fortunately, I'm not injured very often, but the 2 times that I've been seriously injured, I was miserable, and I was making everyone else miserable around me. And it's just tough. We want to be out there doing what we want. We want to have a great time and play pickleball and compete to our best available level.
Guys, get 10% off of your Yobo Backpack Plus. That's BAK. PAK, Backpack Plus, using the code 402P at checkout, or you can just go to 402p.com/warmup. 402p.com/warmup will get you 10% off of whatever you want there at Yobo. And I'll tell you, it's one of those things you buy once and you will use it forever and ever. And buy now, thank us later.
And they make great gifts, really great gifts.
Mircea, let's dig in a little bit on individual strategies in specific situations on the pickleball court. Let's start with the serve.
That's the time that we can control pretty much everything, because we can control the serve, we can control our pre-serve alignment to get ourselves the optimal balls. We want to get weaker returns. And again, what do people that bang the ball drive? They want it in their wheelhouse. So what we can do, we can change the pace, because if we just hit the same serve over and over again, especially people coming over from tennis, they get into that groove where they can hit the hard ball when they hit the hard return. So maybe we want to change the pace. Maybe we want to do some off speed. We want to slice. We want to lob serve. We want to pull them in different parts of the court. We want to stretch them out. So if I'm on the right, for example, I might start serving right next to the midline. And then over the course of the game, I might switch my position. Maybe I go out closer to the sideline, or I go back to the midline, and I just change the pace. You just don't want to give them the same serve over and over unless it's working. If you're hitting a particular serve and it's working, what do we do in that scenario, Michael?
You just keep going until it stops working.
Exactly. We keep doing the same thing.
So I was playing singles yesterday for the first time in many months against my buddy Grant. Shout out to Grant. And I was ripping. You really want a nice deep serve in singles. I was getting punished so hard by his crazily spinny return. He just had this amazing return that he kept putting into the left corner pocket of the court. It was spinning outside, and I was getting dominated by this darn return. And I decided to step back and do this big, long, not a huge lob, but probably like a 10-foot high lob serve. And I came storming back because he was not able to do the same kind of stuff with that serve. So that was a mental change for me. I'm curious, based on what we said before, how you feel about this. If you're a banger and I give you a nice hard serve and you're like, cool, thanks. It's waist high with pace, which is what I'm used to because I'm a tennis player.
Mm-hmm.
What if I just did either like a super cutty or low short serve that really forced you to come up, which is right where you don't want to be?
Absolutely. And I've been using a short, either slice or a short topspin serve, particularly when people are switching. And that short serve often gets me short returns because I set it up by hitting hard, deep serves at the beginning. And then I try to change my technique just as I'm serving so it's not predictable. And what happens is the people have to run forward to hit the ball, and they're afraid to hit it too hard because then it's going to go out. And so they tend to hit shorter, easier returns. But again, that's set up by the deeper, harder topspin serves when I start out.
For thirds, do you feel like drive in this case, because we're used to driving, do we want to drive, or do you think let's say even a drop to the middle is maybe a better response to a banger?
Usually the bangers like the ball in their wheelhouse. So again, at their waist, torso level, generally speaking, they're not going to like the drops if you have an effective drop or a combination of drive drop. The off-speed drive that's going down at their feet. That's really probably going to be one of the more effective strategies. I will say that if they hit a really good, deep, hard return, I will tell my partner, let's drive those because they're difficult to hit a perfect drop. Let's drive those medium pace ball, try to keep it relatively low, but good margin with the net, or you hit some topspin to help it dip down. And let's stay back so we don't make each other a target in the midcourt if we don't hit a perfect drive. And then we get a better fifth. So if they block the ball back and then we have a relatively easy fifth that we can control, we can target the fifth a little bit better that way rather than, again, making ourselves a target.
Have you faced at the senior pro level, maybe in the last couple of years, have you faced a team that has completely sold out in terms of banging? Or have you guys almost superseded that from a skill level standpoint that somebody knows exactly how to counter it and bring them into the game they want?
Oh, no. We've definitely faced a bunch of teams like that over the years with different partners. And even most recently, in the APP Fort Lauderdale, I played with Jose DeRisi, and we played these guys in the semis that had upset a few teams, and they were really good in terms of attacking almost every ball that was attackable. And we had some difficulty adjusting. I think we were down 8-1 or 9-1 in the first game, and we came back and won it only when we were able to adjust and implement the strategy that got us better balls.
I think I watched that game on TV. I think I watched it on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken, because you're
I
down
haven't
and you
seen it.
came back and won it.
Yeah, we did. But it took time for us to adjust because they played a little bit of an unusual or atypical style that required us to adjust our patterns and adjust our strategy a little bit. One thing that I also want to add about returns is you can think of returns in the same way as the serve that you might need a change of pace. So usually you want a hard, deep return. And sometimes if the bangers, for example, have a really good serve, you're not getting as much depth or as much pace as you would like on your returns. So maybe you hit some off speed, some slice, like you were saying, the slice shorter returns. I've had some success in singles where I've hit slicey shorter returns and I've gotten up quickly, but the people that are trying to bang the ball sometimes have difficulty with those. So another one is a lob or kind of a looping return that gives you some time and also keeps the ball out of their wheelhouse.
I played a tournament last year, a senior pro tournament, and my partner was somewhat quickly identified by the opponents as someone who didn't handle drives particularly well. And this was very early on in the Gearbox Pro Power or whatever the paddle is, and just got overwhelmed. The guy, poor guy, I think they fired it at him 17 times, and I think they got 15 points out of the 17. He was just getting blown up by it. And I didn't have enough strategic background yet. Even until after the game, I'm thinking about it and doing a debrief and thinking, I felt helpless. I didn't know what to do as the partner to help him because there wasn't much I could have done. Each teammate across from us was driving right at him. So it wasn't like picking one person or the other made too much of a difference. Right. They were just running around the return. They had a hard serve, which was very difficult because we couldn't do a ton with the returns. It was a relatively short baseline fence behind us. So I couldn't give myself like a ton of room to relax and hit like a decent return. So a lot of them were coming in pretty hot with not a lot of response time, if you know what I'm saying. Which means I was getting a weak return that they were just pulverizing at my partner. And we didn't know anything about the vampire fourth or anything like that yet. But it is a somewhat helpless feeling. What do you tell someone like that when they're the one getting blown up?
First of all, you have to be cognizant of what your partner's skills are and how they're addressing the issue. Meaning, are they being ready? Are they getting out of the way? Are they trying to reset or just block balls when they need to counter them? What can happen sometimes is that people are just blocking balls and the balls are floating a little bit or you're not getting any pace on it and your opponents keep attacking your partner and your partner is just trying to reset or block and they're just getting blown up. So in that scenario, they have to try countering some because they have to make some sort of adjustment in that scenario. If you're already up at the kitchen or if you have one particular person that's driving straight ahead or straight at them, one thing you can do is put your partner diagonal from the one that's primarily attacking because it's a longer distance and it also allows the geometry of the court to be used to maximize the court positioning. And what that means is if someone is diagonal from the person that's attacking. Let's say hypothetically someone is on the right side and the opponent that's attacking is on the right side. So if I'm on the right and the one that's attacking me is on the right, I know I can just focus on my backhand. I can just pinch middle, because if they hit the ball hard to my diagonal and it's going out, you use the geometry of the court to have an additional defender, if you will. Because if someone is driving straight ahead, they have the length of the court. If they're driving diagonally, then they have to keep it more middle, because if it goes too far wide, it's going to go out.
You said something there that I thought was really interesting that we haven't touched on just yet, which is your partner's getting blown up and they're trying to reset the ball. And I think we have a mentality of this, especially if you're mid-court or working your way up, to reset the ball versus what we talked about at the beginning of the show, which was a kind of a low block that was down by their feet. If you try to reset the ball, meaning your paddle face is vertical or even slightly turned up against a banger, that ball's going to go 9 feet in the air and they're going to be able to put it away anywhere. Versus, let's point the angle of that paddle down. If you're sitting at the kitchen, at least get it down towards their feet. If you try to just reset the ball, which is what a lot of us soft hands are going to, and we're going to get them into a dinking rally, that ball's going to bounce way higher than you want it to. And I think the challenge that we would have in this case when our teammates getting blown up is you don't want to be like on the court coaching someone how to split step and be ready for this ball. So you'd hope that it would be some sort of tournament situation where you could talk after or call a timeout or something and say, hey, if you try XYZ, maybe this would work.
Absolutely. And sometimes the players are just better. They're just doing a great job blowing up your partner. Your partner has difficulty adjusted, or they're attacking you and you're having difficulty adjusting. If you're losing by just getting blown up because you're resetting or you're hitting short returns or fluffy returns, let's at least try to lose in a different fashion. Let's try to hit out on our returns a little bit. And if we miss 1 out of 3, okay, at least we're not losing 3 out of 3 because we're hitting fluffy returns. If someone has a big forehand, let's try more returns to their backhand. Let's at least change it. And sometimes you can't adjust because the players are just playing too well. And that's okay. What I think is not okay is to just give them the same ball over and over or lose the same point over and over again. At least adjust to counteract that.
I think a scenario that happens a lot is they've served, you've returned, their third shot is a drive of some sort. Very often, their left side player is on the prowl. They're the one, if it's a shake and bake type situation, one of them is probably shaking, the other one's probably baking. If it's the left side player who's coming into the middle and trying to put that ball away, a really good spot. First, we take Mircha's advice and narrow the court by a foot on each side. We kept going. I said, look, every ball you get goes to the left side players, a foot inside that sideline. Left side, he doesn't have a backhand. Very often they don't, or they don't bang from the backhand as well. Mm-hmm. So that part of, assuming you're playing two righties, that right side of the court tends to be one of the only safe zones you have if you can figure out a way to block it to that area.
That's a really good point. Really like that idea. We've talked about safe zones and weaknesses. And if you have two players where they have no weakness, perhaps just their less strong side is where you want to go. So just think about not doing the same thing over and over again when you're getting down in the points and you're losing the points. One other thing that we haven't addressed is if you're stacking, so if you happen to be playing with a lefty and you're having trouble with drives and you're getting down in the points where you're trying to switch or unwind the stack, consider half stacking, where you just stay on the same side as you're returning. And then when you're serving, you can adjust your position appropriately where you are stacking.
We actually did a 3/4 stack the other day, Mircha, where we were playing mixed. She happened to be on the left-hand side and was not completely comfortable coming all the way to the right, that diagonal right move. And it worked for us, for me to stay on the right side for that particular configuration. And then when they were serving to me, we switched in the normal unwinding of the stack.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. That's also a great strategy. One thing you also have to keep in mind is that if your partner is getting attacked, it might be on the balls you're hitting. So you have to really be introspective, because if you hit a decent dink or an aggressive slice or topspin dink, hopefully the player that's attacking your partner won't have a chance or will be in a much more difficult position to attack than if you hit like a fluffy ball. Because a lot of times the player that's getting attacked is getting attacked off a relatively poor or not great ball from their partner. So make sure that if your partner is getting attacked, that you are the one that's not giving the opponents what they want.
Yeah, completely. And it really goes without saying, probably the third thing we harp on the most on this particular show, Mircea, is communication. The ball is coming so hot that you maybe don't have as much time as you normally would to mine yours, blah, blah, blah. So you may have to choose who maybe can handle the drive a little bit better, maybe if they're the left side player or whatever. I actually find that when I'm the right side player and I'm in my kind of two-handed backhand ready position, that I can handle a ton of drives. In fact, I can come around on them and make them pay with a nice little angle on the way back versus one that's firing like center mass on me and I'm one-handed and my paddle might flex a little bit. My arm might flex under that kind of pressure.
Yeah, and this is one of the things you can talk about with your partner. One of the, I think underused strategies is who do you want to be directly across? One classic example is it's a mixed match. The gentleman on the other side is relentlessly attacking the woman straight ahead, which will be the right side woman. So one thing you can do is have your female partner be directly across from the other female opponent. Guys are straight ahead from the guys and the ladies are straight ahead from the ladies. So that's one thing you can adjust like by reverse stacking.
Yeah, it'd like be the opposite of what you would normally see in a mixed scenario. I think it's finally worth noting that when you're playing against bangers, you know it quickly. It's within the first couple of points.
Oh, yeah. You'll know in the warm-up.
Yeah, you'll know in the warm-up. And also, they can rail points really fast. Before you know it, if you don't start this process of how do we compete against this, how do we counter what they're doing, it can be 7-0 in a minute and a half. And that can be a problem.
Exactly. And one important thing we didn't mention, in a tournament, let's take a timeout. We're losing 3-4 points the same way. All right, let's talk about it very briefly. Let's adjust the strategy and let's bring about some of the points that we're talking about during this episode.
And if you guys want to take a timeout, like number one senior pro player Mircea Marariu, you'll just drop your paddle with reckless abandon and walk off the court, which we watched you do the other day on the APP. And I'm like, that's one way to put the paddle down.
Hey, when you take a timeout, you got to take a timeout.
Guys, I hope this was helpful. Easily one of the most requested shows we get, how to play against bangers. If we missed anything, you can always email me at picklehelp.com. I send those right along to Mircea, and we will respond to you either in an email or on an upcoming Q&A show. There you go. Thanks,
Thank
buddy.
you, Michael. Great job today.
Folks, you've now just listened to another episode of 4.0 to Pro. If you want to be in our camp, got a couple VIP slots, 402p.com/camp. As always, if you want a carbon pickleball paddle, you get 10% off using the promo code 402p at checkout. And until then, go out, get on the court. Hope you guys are well equipped to play against bangers. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to 4.0 to Pro. For more tips, find us on Instagram at 4.0 to Pro. If you have a pickleball question, submit it at picklehelp.com. Now, get out there and dominate. But don't forget to have fun.